So, a very good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this series of workshop on Stata. And as we all know, Stata is one of the most popular statistical package which is used for quantitative researchers in numerous fields. As you all know, that these workshops are designed to give you an elementary introduction to Stata. So, however, I am not an expert who is going to deal. We do have Professor Krishanu, who is an expert and who is an associate professor in the General School of Government and Public Policy. He is an applied economist by training, and he loves to do anything with data. And to talk about, he is a BSc from University of Calcutta. He has done masters from University of Delhi and also from Georgia State University. He holds a PhD from Georgia Institute of Technology and Georgia State University. So without taking any more time, I request Professor to please take over the session and enlighten us with the required. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining in. Over to you.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Welcome, everyone. I can see some of the names that I know already. You have been my students and in very recent past, and there are some others whom I don't know yet. So hello, Sejal. Good evening. I hope over the next 4 sessions, I will get to know you guys. Now, let me start the workshop immediately without wasting any more time. But before that, let me just tell you, today I will try to break the workshop into 3 parts. And after every part, I will stop for a few minutes to take questions. Now, definitely there might be more questions that I can accommodate within the stipulated time. Therefore, if you have more questions that I can address within the stipulated time, you are more than welcome to send me emails. And what I will do is I will wait till tomorrow maybe, and then I will collect all the questions and I will then kind of create a document with the answers, and I will send it to all of you through the library. So I think that will that will answer all of your questions if I am not able to address any questions today. So let me just first share my screen. Just 1 minute. I think screen, that will be best. Yeah. All right. So how do I put this on? Okay, so as you already know that, can you guys see my screen? Can anyone tell me whether you can see my screen or not?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So this is a series of 4 days, and over the 4 days, we will cover from the very basics of Stata. That is, today we will cover basically the introduction to the Stata user interface and how it looks, how it works. Then in the next session, we will get into how to work with a data set and how to work with variables in Stata. So that will be the second day. After that, the third day, what I will do is I will get into reproducible work, because the cornerstone of scientific quantitative analysis is reproducibility. Now, it is never possible for us to remember what we did 5 days ago with our data set. Therefore, we need to have a way to reproduce whatever we did. So that is what I will do in the third session. And any statistical package, be it Stata, be it some of you might have heard or may have some introduction to R, for example, or any other statistical package that is out there, all of them are based on instructions, which technically we call commands. Now, the beauty of Stata is that it has a fantastic common structure behind its commands. So on the fourth day, we will cover the Stata syntax or the Stata command syntax. So this will be the 4 days. So today, the basic introduction to the Stata interface, how Stata works, where is what, where to look for results, where to look for data and all that. In next session, we will look at how to work with a data set, how to work with variables. Third day, reproducible work, and the fourth day will be the Stata syntax. Now, when doing this, remember that these are sessions on Stata. These are not sessions on statistics. So while I conduct these sessions, I will assume that you all have some basic understanding of statistical concepts like variables, frequency distribution, bar chart, column chart, pie chart, these different types of diagrammatic representation of data, the different types of summary measures about data, mean, median, standard deviation, then probability and probability distributions, and different types of hypothesis tests. So I will assume that you already know it. It's not that we will get into any details about those, but if I am showing something in Stata, I will not get into discussing the theoretical statistical part of any of those. I will show you how to do it in Stata, assuming that you know the statistical part. So that is how these workshops will go. Now, today is day one, of course. So today we are going to cover the very basics. Now, even before I get into the basics of Stata, let me tell you something, because some of you will take very soon some course which might use Stata, but others might not actually take any course in recent times with Stata. So for them, how can you continue after these 4 days? How can you continue your learning of Stata? Now, there are many ways. First of all, there is internet. Um, Google search, YouTube are your best bet. Not only that, if you are really interested in Stata, I strongly recommend that you become a registered member of this forum called Stata List, where all types of researchers, starting from very basic researchers up to those who are very, very, very accomplished in Stata, very experienced in Stata, they are all members of this forum, and people post their questions daily, different types of questions, and those questions get categorized in different ways. And you can post your questions, you can see what others are asking, you can see their answers. So that is one source from which you can continue your learning. The second is, of course, the Stata help files and the Stata PDF manuals. Stata PDF manuals are very extensive. If you look at, I will show you where to look for them. I think with the recent edition of Stata, Stata PDF manuals runs into something like 16 to 17,000 pages, PDF pages. So anything that you are stuck with, if you look, you know where to look into those manuals, you will be able to find some help there. So that is your second source of learning. And the third is, of course, there are plenty of books, fantastic books. Some of them actually published by the company which creates data and publishes data, which is Stata Corp, and their website is stata.com. So if you go to their website and figure out where the Stata bookstore is there within that website, you can do it very easily. You will see that there are several fantastic books. Now, what I forgot to do is the different documents that I had sent you earlier. Actually, I sent it through the library. Um, in there, I forgot to actually add a list of books which might be good for your introductory level. So I will do that within next 2-3 days. I will send another document with a list of books that, if you are interested, will help in your learning. So these are the three things that you can take your learning after these 4 sessions. Those of you who do not have any other course immediately to take. All right. So with that, let's get into what we are going to do today. So today is the basics day. And the three things that we are going to do are, first of all, get ourselves acquainted with the graphic user interface of Stata, then understand how Stata actually works, and finally, uh, use Stata as a big calculator. Now, that what will that do? That will actually make us familiarize us with different parts of Stata and how to also look at Stata. So these are the three things that I want to do. If time permits, if there is, which I doubt there will be, but if there is still time, then we might do a few more things. But I plan to do these three things. Graphic user get us familiarized with the user interface of Stata, how Stata works, and Stata as a big calculator. All right. So the graphic user interface. Now, all of you, I think, have installed Stata, and definitely you were interested to see how it looks like. So what you did, you opened Stata, and if you open Stata, this is what came in front of you. This is the user interface or the graphic user interface of Stata. All right. So what is what? In the middle, this big window that you can see is known as the results window. All results, all statistical procedures that you carry out, all results will be shown here. More results will be added at the bottom, and this Stata and the name of the organization and their address, all of these things will keep on scrolling up, and new additions with new results will come at the bottom. So we can scroll up and down and check what different results of our analysis. So this is the results window. Going to the left top corner, this is where the menus of Stata reside. So there, throughout these sessions, at least over the first 2 sessions, I will mostly use Stata through the menus. So this is where we will basically mostly work with. Then below the menus, we have this history window. Now, I think till Stata 15, if I know correctly, this was called the review window. Now, I think from Stata 16, Stata Court changed the name of this window to history. Now, what does it do? Anytime you do anything in Stata, you put any instruction into Stata, that gets echoed or copied here. So till the moment you close Stata, everything that you do will be recorded here so that you can go back to anything that you did earlier. So that is the history window. Now, below the results window, we have the command editor. Now, this is where, I should say, this is one of the places where we can put our instructions. So this is a command window. On the right-hand side of the results window, we have the variables window. Now, if right now it is empty, if I had loaded a data set into Stata, this is where you would see the names of the variables. So since right now I don't have any data set in Stata, or at least when I created this presentation, the screenshot I took of Stata, at that moment of time, there was no data set loaded in Stata. Therefore, this is empty. But if I load a data set, the names of the variables will appear here. And finally, Below the variables window, we have the properties window. I will come to your questions. Just let me finish the slide. Below the variables window, we have the properties window. And this basically shows us the properties of the variables that we have in the data set and also some properties of the data set itself if we had a data set already loaded. But since right now I don't have any data set loaded, there is no property either. So this is the basic user interface of Stata that always is in front of us. Of course, there is some caveat to that, but whenever you open Stata, unless and until you have made some changes to the interface, this is what you are looking at. So what are the different parts? Results window at the middle, the menus at the left top corner, the history window, the command editor window, the variables window, and the properties window. However, if you pay close attention, you will see that on the corner of the three windows, history, variables, and properties, there is a cross. But there is no such cross with at the corner of either the command editor window or the results window. That means if you want, you can actually make the history window, the variables window, and the properties window disappear. All right. Now, if you make them disappear, how to get back them? You can get back them by going to this window menu. So if you click on the window menu, the menu will expand, and then whichever particular window you have closed, you can click on that and bring it back. So keep that in mind. All right. And finally, I want you guys to look at something else. If you are looking at my screen, then look at the bottom left corner, or if you have opened your own Stata and you are looking at that, then also look at the left bottom corner of your Stata window. Now there is the path of a folder of your computer. Most likely for all of you, it will be the My Documents folder. Now, I will explain what it is. There is a name for it. Right now, if I drop that name, it will not really make much sense. Therefore, I will come to this particular concept a little later. But this is known as the working directory or working folder. So Stata looks at that folder for the time being. Now, in what respect, I will explain that. All right. So this is the user interface that we are looking at. Now let me just check. There is a 2 questions, I think, in the chat box. Let me just check if there is something. Okay. If your results window is not visible, just go to the window menu and you will see that results window is not visible. Hold on. Did you say result? No, history window. Sorry. Just go to the window menu and there you can click on the history. You will see that there is something called history, and click on that and the history window will reappear. All right. Now, these are the windows that are always there in front of you. However, there are some windows which you need to call, only then they appear. They are not always in front of you. What are those? The first of them is the data editor window. Now, this is kind of a spreadsheet where the data set resides. So when you load a data set in Stata and you want to look at the data set, this is the window that you call upon, the data editor window, or this is also known as the data browser window. The second one is the graph editor or graph viewer. Now, I told you that any statistical analysis that you do, the result of those analysis will appear in the results window, except the graphs. Any statistical graph that you create will appear in a separate graph window. And unless and until you create a graph, this window will not appear. So this is another kind of window which you need to call upon. Only then it appears. The third one is the viewer window or the help viewer. Now this is where if you want to look at any help on any instruction or any concept within Stata, um, this is how it will Stata will show you. So this is known as the viewer window or the help viewer. The next one is the variables manager. So this is where you can do some modifications to the variables, and this also does not appear all the time. You need to call it, and you can work with the variables a little bit. Finally, the last window that you can open, which is not always open, but you can call it, is the do file editor. Now we will definitely have a whole day. That is basically the third day we will spend on do file. So I'm not getting into much details of it. Just that it is this do file editor is just inbuilt text editor of Stata. So those of you who have used to some extent, let's say Notepad, those of you who are Windows people, those of you who use Mac, you have your editor, I think that is what, yeah, I think it is editor. So that is the inbuilt text editor for Mac, and Notepad is the inbuilt text editor for Windows. Similarly, there is the inbuilt text editor for Stata, which is the do file editor. And through this, we create something called a do file. Now we will see what it is later on. So these are the five windows that only appear if you call them. So just to recap, there are two types of windows in the Stata interface. One, the first set are those which are always visible, and the second set which we need to call. So the always visible ones are the results window, the command editor window, the history window, the variables window, and the properties window. The ones that we need to call are the data browser window, graph viewer window, help viewer, variables manager, and do file editor. Now, out of the five windows which are always visible, history, variables, and properties, these three, you can actually make them disappear. So keep that in mind. So these are the 10 main windows that appear in Stata. 5 of them are always there with the basic interface, and other 5 you need to call upon when the need arises. So this is the basic interface of Stata. So the next thing is how Stata actually works. But before that, let me see if there is any question up to this point. So, any question? Okay, there is something in the chat box. How do we call these windows? Um, the 5 windows, which are always there as part of the basic interface, you can just open Stata and they come up. The other 5 depends on what depends on the context. The graph, as I told you, the graph window will appear only if you create a graph in Stata. The viewer window will appear only if you are looking at some help file in Stata. What are the other ones? The data browser window again, either you have to call the data browser window. So let me just get into the Stata interface later on and I will show you how to do that. And the other two, what are the other two? The variables manager, I have to check because I have it's through the data menu, but I have to check that. And finally, the do file editor. There are many ways of bringing that on. Either you can type a particular command in the command editor, or through the menu, or through the um, your icons. So there are many ways. So I will show you how to bring at least some of them later on. Any other question? So my suggestion is just open your Stata in your computers. Just look at it, and if something is not clear, don't do anything. Just look at it, and if something appears to you that I did not talk about or is not clear to you, let me know. Any other question? Nothing in the chat box. So I will wait for maybe another minute or half a minute to see if you have any question. Then I will start the next part. Oh, that will come later. Later. Hold on. First, let us understand how Stata looks, where is what, where to look for different things, and then we will come to maybe if we have time today towards the end, I will show you how to load a data set. Otherwise, we will do it in the next session. All right. So let me get into the next part of the discussion today. You can always write your question in the chat box. I will come back to it later. Or as I told you, if I cannot get to your question today, send me an email. Okay. So how Stata works? Now to work with Stata, generally speaking, we need two things. One is a data set and another is a plan of analysis. Now remember, Stata is a tool. It will not plan your analysis. You as the analyst or researcher have to have your own plan. Stata will just implement your plan. That's it. Stata is not going to recommend any particular analysis for that, for what it is worth. It's your task to know what you are going to do. Now, whatever you want to do, Stata will do that. So to work with Stata, we need two things, a data set and a plan of analysis. So first of all, we load a data set into Stata. And from the plan of analysis that we have, we construct a set of instructions. Now, from now onwards, I will no longer call these instructions. I will call them by their proper name within the context of Stata, which is Stata commands. So Stata works on commands. which are basically instructions. And those instructions are built on your plan of analysis. So once you have created those commands, you put those commands into Stata. Those commands work on the data and you get your results or your output. So this is how Stata works. Data plus instructions gives you results. Now the instructions must come from your plan of analysis. Now, earlier, when I was discussing the um, user interface of Stata, I told you that on the left bottom corner, there is a path of a particular folder or directory of your computer, and that is called the working directory. Now, what is it? Now, when Stata is working, at least at the basic level, Stata expects the data set and the results to be in the same folder of your computer. And that particular folder is your working directory or working folder. Now, there is definitely ways of changing it, and we will learn how to do that. And in fact, when you open Stata, it by default, it uses your My Documents folder as the working directory, but you should not, and that is a capital should not, use your My Documents folder as the working directory. You should always create a new folder for each of your projects or each of your research work or each of your analysis, and that should function as your working directory for that folder. For example, right now in my computer, in the D partition, directly under the D partition of my hard drive, there is a folder called Stata_sessions. And that is the folder that I will use maybe today. If I do not have time, then in the next class as the working directory for doing everything that I do during the sessions. So similarly, for each of your work, maybe you are taking 2 statistics courses next semester. And each of the courses have a final project. So you should have 2 different project folders for each of them, for each of those courses. And those should work as your working folders or working directories. So all the data sets, all the instructions, all the results, everything should be there in those respective folders, because data will always look there. And we will learn how to ask Stata to look there instead of the My Documents folder where it looks when it opens for the first time. So by default, it will always look at your My Documents folder, but you should change it, and you should change it to a separate folder for each of your work. That is the first crucial technical thing that you need to remember about Stata, that each of your project work should have its own working directory. All right. Now, how do we give the commands to Stata? I told you that Stata works like this. You have your data set and you have your commands. The commands work on the data set and you get your results. But how do we give the commands to Stata? There are mainly 2 ways. One is the interactive mode and another is the batch mode. Now, what is the interactive mode? The interactive mode is where you give one command, Stata gives you the result, you look at the result, and then you give another command. You look at another new result. So this is the interactive mode, step by step. This is how we generally do when we are learning something. When you are learning Stata for the first time, when you are learning statistics for the first time, when we are not sure what exactly we need to do about an analysis, this is how we work with it. But when we know what we are going to do, when we have become a little bit advanced users of Stata, when we know basically more or less the basic things, then we do no longer work in the interactive mode. What we do is we compile all the commands that we need for our analysis and we put them together into Stata. And Stata shows us all the results together as well. So that is the batch mode. So there are two modes in which we can give instructions or commands to Stata. One is the interactive mode, one command at a time, one result at a time. And another is batch mode, all commands at the same time, all results at the same time. Now, how to exactly do that? How to exactly give the commands in the interactive mode? How to exactly give the command in the batch mode? Now, in the interactive mode, again, there are two ways in which we can do it. One is through the menus. Now, this is how we will learn Stata in these workshops, this at least for the first 2 days, because the best part of Stata is that whether you give it through menus or through the other system, which is typing in, they are basically the same thing. They work exactly the same way. Therefore, when at the very beginner's level, we do not know any command, we do not know if we want to calculate, let's say, average of something, what should be the correct command, when we have no idea about that, then the menu is our best friend. But then, after finding out the average, we can also see from the results window what Stata actually did, which command Stata actually translated into our this requirement that we want to calculate the average. And we can learn it from the results window there. Then once we have learned it, we can type it in at a later stage. So we will do it through the menu system, but our objective is to learn the actual Stata command so that we can type it in at a later stage. So the typing in can also be done in two different ways. One is definitely the command editor, that is which is at the bottom of the results window in the main Stata user interface. Or I showed you that do file editor. We can actually give one command at a time in the do file editor as well. So there are two ways in which we can type in the commands, either in the command editor or in the do file editor. So these are the ways in which we can give the commands to Stata in the interactive mode: menu system, command editor, or do file editor. Ultimately, all of them are equivalent. It is just menu system is easier because we do not need to really know what the command is, while whether we are typing it in the command editor or do file editor, we need to know what we need to type in. And finally, the same typing in, but typing in all the commands together in the batch mode will be through a do file. So in the do file editor, once we, instead of giving one command at a time, we type in all the commands and save that text file, that becomes something called a do file. Now, do file, those of you who have some computer science background or some knowledge of computers, that is basically in other ways called a script file as well, or a batch file. So that is a collection of Stata commands, a file that contains a collection of Stata commands. That is a do file. So when we want to work in the batch mode, we can work, or we have to work through the do file. So again, repeating myself, there are two ways of working with Stata, either in the interactive mode or in the batch mode. In the interactive mode, we have three ways of inputting the commands: menu system, command editor window, do file editor. In the batch mode, the only way is the do file. All right. So this is the ways in which we can input the commands into Stata. Okay. Now we are learning it through the menus because that is the easier way of learning it. But remember, our objective is ultimately to be able to create these do files. That is, now at the very beginner's level, we are learning it in the interactive mode. But at the same time, we will keep on trying to learn the commands so that in the recent future, we are able to create the do files because that is what will be counted as knowing Stata. So if um, let's be very practical. If you are looking for an internship or looking for a job later on, and you want to claim that you know Stata, and if the job requirement is that you need to know Stata, they might actually ask you to submit some do files that you have created because that will portray how well you know Stata. So we will start learning Stata through the menus, but our ultimate goal is to be able to create those do files. All right. So next is Stata as a big calculator. But before I go there, again, let me stop here and see if there are any questions. All types of questions are welcome, so don't worry. Um, if there is anything not clear, just go ahead. There is something, just hold on. All right. So again, if you have questions later on, just send me an email. So let me just continue with the discussion. Now, since I want to now get into Stata, so there is a question. Hold on. Okay, that's actually a very good question. Well, Excel is a spreadsheet um, program. Excel is not a statistical software, and Stata is a statistical software. So Excel can do some rudimentary statistics, but nothing beyond that. Um, So if your objective is just to calculate average and standard deviation, Excel is fine, at least to some extent. But if you want to go beyond that, then definitely you need some statistical package, not Stata only. No, there are many others available. Um, R, SPSS, JMP, Microfit, all these statistical packages. But more than that, another important issue is that in Excel, it's very difficult to track your work. So you cannot record what you are doing step by step. So the reproducibility part that we will discuss in the third session, is almost impossible in Excel. But that is not the case in Stata. So that is the second part. So first is Stata's capabilities are more extensive than Excel can ever imagine to be. So if let's say Excel can do 0.0001% of statistics, Stata can do something like, let's say, 80% of statistics. So that is the comparison between Excel and Stata. Second is, of course, reproducibility. And those are the main crucial things. And your third part of your question, or the second part of your question, was how it can be helpful to an early economics student. Well, depends on what you want to use it for. It all depends on that. Uh, what is the objective of that early economics student? If the early economics student wants to learn econometrics, for example, and do econometrics, then definitely you need Stata. If that early economics student want to apply for advanced economic programs, master's level economics programs, then any knowledge of any statistical package is a added advantage, Stata included. So that's how Stata can help a student, economic student. You can you read out the questions? I'm able to see the questions. Oh, okay. I thought since I'm sharing my screen, the moment I bring the chat box, I can. But can't you see the chat box?
No, Professor. We can only see the the PowerPoint window.
That's interesting. Okay. All right. So next question is, would you recommend R over Stata? I would not, because I know Stata much better than I know R, and the type of work that I do, Stata is more than sufficient. But there will definitely be people. There are definitely people who swear by R, and there is sufficient reason for that, and therefore they might recommend R over Stata. But I would definitely not. Depend that is just personal reason, because the type of work that I do, Stata is more than that is whatever the capability of Stata, I probably use 0.1% or maybe even less than that. So there is no point for, and the amount of time I have spent on Stata, on learning Stata, right now I cannot imagine spending that much time on anything else or any other statistical package. So my ease of working in Stata is much more than any other statistical package. Therefore, I would not recommend R over Stata. However, some people will definitely do that. For example, R is free, Stata is costly. So that's one point on which people might recommend R over Stata. Okay, but ability wise, I don't see any difference. Is Excel in Excel? Next question. In Excel, it's possible to do with macros, right? That is, well, some recording is possible, but you cannot definitely do all the things that Stata can do, all the advanced, all the modelings that Stata can do, all the statistical computations that Stata can do, Excel cannot do even 2% of all those things. Okay, then there is no more question here, at least right now. All right, so yeah, keep the questions coming. Interesting questions, of course. So now I'm firing up my own Stata. So it will be better. I mean, it would have been best if you were looking at the presentation or looking at the logged into this through your mobile phones. That would have been best, because then you could have worked with me uh, in your computer. But let's see how we can work around that. So I will go slowly so that you can minimize the Zoom screen and work on your own Stata as well, along with me. So first of all, let me start Stata, and someone tell me whether you can see still the presentation or my Stata.
This data window is visible, Professor.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Now, this is, I have already discussed. Now, let me show you some interesting things about the window itself, which I could not do on the PPT. Is that I do not like the properties window because I do not really need that much. Therefore, I always generally switch it off. Not only that, what I do is I reposition the variables window as well. Because right now, the way the history and the variables window are there, that they occupy two sides of my screen. And as a result, the results window becomes kind of, uh, the width becomes small. So what I do is bring my, I click on the variables window that becomes blue, and then I drag it. The moment I start dragging it, different types of these buttons appear. I bring it all the way to the bottom of the history window and position it just below the history window. That way, I make my uh, results window much bigger. So that is one thing that I do. Now, it's not that you have to do it. If you are happy with the way Stata looks, perfectly fine. But I do it. Not only that, I do some more, but I don't want to get into those information overload things right now. So the first thing that we are going to do is work with Stata as a big calculator. And I will do very simple arithmetic calculations, of course, but that will tell us how to look at the results window and see how the results look like when we do something in Stata. So how to use Stata as a calculator. Now to do that, what we have to do, we go to this data menu. So at the top in the menu, we have this data menu. So I go there and I click on it. So this menu appears. I scroll down till the bottom, and the last element there is other utilities. Now, when I bring my mouse to the other utilities, another menu appears, and the top one of that is hand calculator. So if I click on that hand calculator, then this display dialog box appears. So when you are using the menu system of Stata to work with Stata, almost all commands of Stata have their dialog box counterpart, which in those documents that I have shared with you, you will see that shortened to DB. DB means dialog box. So anything you want to do, any instruction, they have their DB counterpart, that is their dialog box counterpart. So this display at the top, you will see that particular command. So here, the hand calculator command, or the way to convert Stata to calculator, is this display command. So this is the display dialog box. And anything you want to do, any arithmetic calculation you want to do, you can type it in the expression field. For example, the easiest one, 2, let's add 2 plus 2. So just go ahead and type 2 plus 2 in the expression field. Don't press OK. Hold on. So I'm assuming that all of you by now have been able to type 2 plus 2 in the expression field. Now, instead of pressing OK, because if you press OK, this dialog box will disappear. Instead of that, just press Submit. The moment you press Submit, look at the results window. It shows you the result now. Display 2 plus 2. The next line is the output, which is 4. So I told you, the command that converts Stata, or the command that we need to use to make Stata function like a big calculator, is the display command. And in the output here, you see that command comes first. So immediately you can learn your first command of Stata, which is the display command. So anytime you want to do any arithmetic calculation, display is the command. Then there is a little bit space there. After that, you have to type 2 plus 2. So if we were typing this in this command editor window or in some other way and not using the menu system, then this is what we will type: display 2 plus 2. So Stata adds 2, 2, 2 and gives us 4. Now remember, if you are sticking to this white background of Stata, anytime Stata shows some output in black, that means things have probably gone all right. Stata has been able to do that particular thing. It did not encounter any issues, and things have gone okay. So black is good, red is bad. So as long as things are in black, things are good. If things come in red, we will see that very soon. That means some problem has occurred. So let me assume that all of you have been able to add 2 to 2 in Stata. So congratulations, this is your first use of Stata, if you have not used earlier, of course. Another calculation, let's say, now there are two ways you can wipe out this expression that you already have in the expressions field. Either you can just simply delete it by selecting it, or look at this circular arrow button at the bottom of the display dialog box. That is basically the reset button. You click on that, your display dialog box appears new. It is reset. So either way, just delete that 2 plus 2 or reset it. Meanwhile, let me just check. There is probably a question. How can you delete previous commands? Okay, I'm not entirely certain what you are asking. What do you mean? How can you delete? Do you mean that this thing, that 2 plus 2, how to delete this 2 plus 2, or did you mean something else? Okay, so you want to clear this. So the clarification to this question that Sejal asked was, how can you delete previous commands? That clarification is from the results window. So basically, you want to see how can I delete it here? Well, you just cannot delete just one of this output. You can clear out the entire results window. I think it can, if you right click on the results window, and then a small menu appears, and the second option there is clear results, and if you click on that, your entire results window becomes white. So that is only one way, and you cannot just do one uh, command at a time. Whatever is there in the results window will go away. I think that probably answers your question. Okay, so the next calculation, again, another very simple calculation, 4 minus 5. We all know what we are going to get. So go ahead, press submit and see how it looks like. Meanwhile, let me just check the question. Okay. No, there is no question. Sejal just confirmed that my answer was what she was looking for. Okay. Could you please show where to access this calculator again? Absolutely. Go to the data window. Go to the data menu. In the data, if you click on the data menu, the menu appears. The last option there is other utilities. And in the other utilities, the first thing is hand calculator. So 4 minus 5. Submit, minus 1, of course. So again, things are in black in the results window. That means the calculations that we wanted to do has gone through. All right. There are a couple of questions, so let me just check it. Okay, no question, just confirmation that my answer was what he was looking for. He or she, just did not check it very carefully. Okay, she looking for. Yeah, that's a very good question. So next question is, can more complex calculations be done as well? Yes, absolutely. We are definitely not learning Stata to do 4 minus 5 or 2 plus 2. So that was something that I was going to come to the next. So again, reset this expression and look at this button to the right of this expressions field, create. Click on that create, another dialog box will appear, which is the expressions builder. And in that expressions builder, let's take a moment and just first you look at it on your own, then I will explain what is what. So what if anybody missed what I did, just beside the expressions field, there is a create button on the display dialog box. I pressed on that, or I clicked on that create button, and this expression builder dialog box appears. So there are lots of things there. Now, some of the things are not going to work because this expression builder is also there to create new variables through complicated calculations. And to create new variables, we either need existing variables or we need random number generating facilities, which are there. So those are available, but we do not have any existing variable or any existing result already in the memory of Stata. So some of the things are not going to work, but some of the things will. So on the left-hand side, you have this category field, and there are lots of things you can read and scroll through: operators, functions, subscript, coefficient, and variables, and lots of other things. So most of the bottom portion is not going to work. However, the top portion, that is basically mainly the functions portion, is there that we can use. So what I'm going to do, let's say I am going to calculate the log of 8. Okay, that is slightly more complicated than 4 minus 5, right? So let's do that. Now, I know what the function is, but you guys do not know. So let me go through the functions. So I click on functions. Then I have to think, okay, uh, log is a what type of function? Probably it's a mathematical function. So I see that in the functions list, there are different types of functions: date and time function, mathematical, matrix, programming, random number, selecting time, statistical, string, trigonometry. Oh, again trigonometry. Those very dangerous days of class 9, 10, and 11 and 12. Wow, they come back to mind. Anyway, we are not going there. We are going to look at the mathematical functions. So click on the mathematical functions. And immediately on the right hand side, you will see the full list of mathematical functions which are available with this under this category. So scroll through them. Somewhere in the middle, you will find the log function, ln. Now there are two log functions, either ln or log. You can use either of them. Both gives you the same thing. So double click on that log ln function, and that comes up. I'm coming to your question, just hold on. That comes up in the expressions builder. Now it comes up as log x. Now I definitely don't want to calculate log of x. I want to calculate log of 8. So I'm going to delete 8x and type 8 there. So now the expression builder looks like ln 8. I press OK. That same expression is there in the expressions field. Now I'm going to press submit, and as you can see, display log of 8 2.0794415. So Stata just calculated log of 8. So just go ahead. If you do it, if you fell behind, let me just check. There is a question. Okay. Professor, is there any way to make the hand calculator window larger? No, that is one of the pet peeves that I have. For some reason, there is not. The main reason is that the Stata people never really envisage that people will really use these dialog boxes too much, because the moment we get a little acquainted with these functions or commands, you will start typing them, because that is faster, that is better, and that is more suave, if I say so. So if I have to find out log 8, instead of going through the display dialog box, what I have to do is just type display log 8 and press same thing. However, what I can do is, since I can increase my screen size, but then you cannot see my whole screen. You can see the dialog box, but not my entire screen. I have to kind of scroll and show you. Let's see, this might work. Okay, so any other question? Yeah, sure. So let's calculate. So the question is, if you can repeat this process. So I can definitely repeat the process, but the question is, where is my dialog box that has gone away? Yeah, it is here. So let me just delete this thing here from here. Create functions, mathematical functions, scrolling to log, double click on it. So log function comes up here. Delete that x and type 8. Once I have typed 8 there, okay, that comes in the expression, and press submit. That is the repetition. So go ahead, do it, and let me check what are these 3 questions that I have got. Professor, when I type display ln8, it showed an error. Very good. That's because what you typed, the mistake that you committed is you put a space between that n and the first parenthesis before 8. There is no space between these. Within the function itself, there is no space. You cannot put any space. Redo it, it will be corrected. Okay, the next question is there some user guide for using it on Mac? I had to manually type in the function because it doesn't show the functions for me. Um, See, my problem is I do not have access to Mac, but the best part of Stata is that it does not work differently on different operating systems. So I'm not sure if you install Stata correctly, why it should not show you the function. I'm not entirely sure. But one of the main characteristics of Stata is that it does not work differently in different operating system. It works exactly the same way. So it should show you the function in Mac as well, if the installation is correct. Okay, so you are facing the same issue. The only thing I can probably do is later on I can see your screen and try to figure out what is the problem there. Other than that, right now, because I don't have access to Mac, therefore I don't know anything more about it. Yeah, so some of you are saying that it is showing on Mac. Some of you are saying it is not showing on Mac. So there may be 2 possibilities. One is your installation was not correct. 2 is you are doing it wrong. Because my understanding, which I know for a fact, that Stata does not work differently in different operating systems. So the only thing is that later on we can check your screen. Other than that, I can't help you in any way. So just create, and then on the left hand side, see how it is showing. Maybe it is showing in a slightly different way, but it should be there. Okay. So making it smaller again. So log 8 is definitely a bit more complicated thing. You can definitely, at your leisure time, look through these different types of mathematical functions and figure out how much more complicated calculations you want to do. You have absolute function, ceiling function, and then many more complicated functions. So yes, of course, you can do many different complicated things. Just as an example, let me just add 5 to the log of 6 and then square it. No, not square it. Let's say then multiply it by um, the square of 3. So 3. Now square is, as you guys know, to the power, which is this kind of a caret sign. So 3 to the power 2. So that is definitely a very complicated calculation, at least for me. So okay, that comes in the expressions uh, field, submit. Okay, so the result is 61.125835. All right. So I guess that is a fairly complicated calculation, right? Now, I have been telling you that black is good, but I have not been, and red is bad, but I have not shown you anything. So let me show you how it looks in red. Let's say I want to add 2 to OPJGU. Now, we cannot add 2 to OPJGU, right? There is no mathematical operation like that. But still, let's force Stata to do it. So 2 plus OPJGU, submit. Display 2 plus OPJGU, that is basically the command that Stata translated this instruction into. But then Stata could not do the calculation. And as a result, it shows us in red instead of a number as earlier. It now shows us in red. OPJGU not found. I cannot do the calculation. So the moment you see something in red, that means something has gone wrong. All right. Now, I will not have time in these 4 sessions to discuss these errors, but you check the manuals of Stata and you can figure out about these errors. Now, I told you earlier that I will show you where to find the PDF um, manuals of Stata that I have not yet shown you. So let this display dialog box be there. So you go to this help menu at the top. In the help menu, uh, the first thing is PDF documentation. So if you click on that PDF documentation, a PDF file will open. I hope it opened in your computers because I'm not sure whether you are still seeing my computers, seeing my Stata or the PDF file. But anyway, on the left-hand side, if you have opened it in your computer, on the left-hand side, you have bookmarks. Go to the help menu and then click on the PDF documentation. So on the left-hand side, you have these bookmarks. So each of them is a separate manual. So you have, I think, something like 21 manuals, or maybe a slight bit more. And in total, they run into almost above 16,000 pages. So if you want to really learn Stata well, you don't have to read all of them, but definitely read this user's guide, which is the third one from the top. definitely read this user's guide at some point of time. So all the commands that are used for data management will be in the data management manual. All the commands which are, let's say, for regular statistical analysis will be in this, where is R, base reference manual, which is shorthand is R. And depending on what type of analysis you want to do, those will be in those particular manuals. So this is how you find out the PDF documentation. Okay, there are several questions I can see. Let me just check what are the question. Find a valid PDF. Yeah, if your computer does not have a PDF reader, it won't show you because these things are in PDF. So you need to have at least a free PDF reader installed in your computer. I'm not sure what you meant by it shows can't reach the page. Most likely you do not have, again, you probably do not have a PDF reader. Could not find a valid PDF reader, same problem. You need to have a PDF reader. So in display command, so your computer needs to have a PDF reader to see this PDF documentation. Most likely you are accustomed to open PDF documentation in Safari or Firefox or Chrome. That is not going to work here, I think. If you have been opening PDF documents in the internet browsers, any of the internet browsers, that is not going to work. You need to have at least install a free PDF reader. For example, Adobe Reader is free, right? Just install that. In the display command, a gap between plus and ln does not seem to matter. Yes, it does not seem to matter. The answer is the same irrespective of whether I have a gap or not. Absolutely right. You are right. So the question is that in the display command, so let me go back to my screen. In the display command, so here also, as you can see, I have typed it as 5. You guys can see my status results window, right? Yes, no, very good.
Yes,
Yes,
Professor.
Professor.
Okay. So yes, as you can see, 5, I have typed it as 5 plus space log 6 multiplied by 3 to the power 2. So here there are many different components of this calculation. The function is, the only function that I'm using is this log function. Other things are not functions. They are just part of this mathematical calculation. So it does not matter if I have a space, let's say, between this open parenthesis and the 5, whether there is a space between the 5 and the plus sign, whether there is a space between the plus sign and the starting of log, or whether there is a space between these two closing parentheses. But I think there will not even be a problem if there is a space in front of this multiplication sign, but that I cannot confirm right now. However, you cannot have a space between this log and this parenthesis because that is part of a single function. But the rest of it are just parts that are constituting this entire calculation. So you can have spaces here and there. That doesn't matter. Okay. All right. So where was I? Yeah, here. Yeah, I will send a set of recommendations later on about books. So the question is, please recommend an introductory book on Stata. So I will definitely send a one page document with some recommendations. Uh, please repeat how you opened. Well, in my case, at least it opened through help, then PDF documentation. Some of you are saying that it is not happening. Without looking at what is going on, I can't really diagnose the problem much better. Okay. Now, what is the error message you getting? I don't know. So the question is, I have Adobe installed, but PDF document is not opening. Then the question is, I need to know what error message you are getting, or I need to at least look, see the screenshot. Other than that, I cannot help it. Okay. So my guess is you guys will be able to figure out something about the PDF documentations very soon when you sit down a bit coolly about it. Now, since I have a few minutes left, and it looks like that you are comfortable using this display command to do simple mathematical calculations or fairly complicated mathematical calculations. Let me just whet your appetite for the next session. And as someone asked at the very beginning of today, that how to load a data set in Stata. So let me show that. So let me show you two things. One is how to change the working directory in Stata and how to uh, load a data set. So as you can see right now, still till now, my working directory is this my documents folder in my computer. Now I want to change that. So what do I do? First of all, I have to go to the file menu. So at the very left side in the menu bar, I have the file menu. In the file menu, somewhere in the middle, you see this option called change working directory. Click on that. And the way Windows system works, another dialog box appears, where I can figure out which folder I want to choose. So as I told you, in my computer under the D partition, I have this Stata sessions folder I have created for these sessions. So I select that and press OK. But before pressing OK, I think someone missed one of the steps. Okay, yeah, that's a good suggestion. So even if you have Adobe installed, it is so someone, okay, I am not sure if you can see the comment. Someone said that you cannot see the chat box. So Otoshi has commented that if you have Adobe installed in your computer, you need to set Adobe to open, to be the default PDF viewer in your computer. If it is not, then having Adobe doesn't work. So it should be the default for opening all PDFs. So try doing that. Anyway, so I'm going to select this Stata sessions and then press OK. The moment I press OK, check what happened. I'm coming to the results window later. Check what happened to this corner of my computer, of my Stata window. Instead of that My Documents folder, now it points to D Stata sessions. So now it has changed the working directory to D Stata sessions. And also, in the results window, I can see that it says cd, so that is the command to change working directory to this particular folder, D Stata sessions. So that is how you change your working directory. Now CD is basically short for change directory, and this is a remnant of a long forgotten operating system called MS-DOS. So in MS-DOS, the change working directory command was CD. So that is where it comes from. Now, once I have changed the working directory, let me also show you how to load a data set, and that will be all that we can do today. So again, remember, anything you want to do with files will be under the file menu. You want to open a file, close a file, save a file, will be under the file menu. We want to open a data set. So that will be a data file. So we have to go to the file menu. Go to the file menu. The first option itself is open. And that is the dataset opening command. So open, again, as usual, Stata open dialog box comes up. And the data set that I'm going to open right now, I have supplied these three data sets to you as well: auto.dta, state.dta, and wage1.dta. So the .dta is the extension for Stata data files. Just as XLSX is the Excel files extension, .docx is the Microsoft Word file extension. Similarly, .dta is the data file extension. So let me just open the wage one data set. So I'm going to select the wage one data and click on open. Immediately, you can see that this command has come to the results window, which says use and then the full path of that file. Not only that, look at the variables window. Look at your computer, because I think I have put it on the left hand bottom side, but in your case it will be on the right hand top side. Earlier it was empty. Now, under the names column, lots of names are there. So those are the names of the variables which are there in this particular data set, wage one. So the moment I told you that when we load a data set in Stata, this variables window will get populated. And voila, now we have those variables here. And then we can work with them. So this is how you change a working directory and load a data set into Stata. That is where I will stop today. In the next class, we will pick it up from here. But I will wait for a few minutes and see if you guys have any question. I will try to answer them, and then I will call it a night. Okay, there is already a question. Oh, that's not a question. Okay. Yes, of course. So there are a couple of questions to show the data set loading thing again. So you need to go to the file menu. In the file menu, the first option is open. The way you can open any file, let's say if you are opening a Microsoft Word file in Microsoft Word, or Excel file in Excel, you always go to the file menu, right? In the file menu, then go to open, and immediately that Stata sessions folder will come in front of you. There, click on the file that you want to open, click and then press the button open. That file will be opened. Okay. Um, Next question is, could you please repeat the working directory part? I mean, I guess you meant how to change the working directory. So go to File. In the File menu, in the middle, you will see the Change Working Directory. So click on that, and the way the Windows system works, it another another window or dialog box comes where you can select whatever folder you want to select. I want to select in my computer under the D partition. Let me make it a little bigger. Under the D partition, I have this Stata sessions folder. So I'm going to select it and press OK. That is how you change the working directory. Okay. Then there is another question I saw, I think. So it's the right bottom corner. Okay. Good question. Good curiosity. The question is on the right hand bottom corner, there are certain things called cap, num, ins. What are those? So cap is if you press your caps lock button, you will see that the cap becomes activated. Now everything you type will be in capital, and that is problematic because Stata expects everything to be in small letters. So that cap is just to give you an indication that your caps lock is pressed or not pressed. The num is if you have your laptop with a big keyboard, because nowadays most laptops do not have the number pad. But if you have either a proper desktop or a laptop with big keyboard where there is a number pad on the right hand side, then there is also a button called num lock button. So if you press that num lock button, you will see that num will be either activated or deactivated. That basically gives you an indication that whether you can use the number pad or not. So if the num lock button is pressed and that num thing is not activated, that is, it is not in dark letters, that means you cannot use the number pad to type numbers. But when it is in dark NUM, then you can use the number pad to type numbers. And finally, INS. INS is you check the top row of your keyboard. There is a button called Insert. Now, I'm not entirely certain what it does. Whenever I press it, it does some bad things. But the main thing is that if you have pressed it, I think it will be activated. That's my guess. Just hold on. It is no, yeah. If you press that insert button, that INS will be activated. Otherwise, not. I'm not entirely certain what it does. So I could answer part of your question, but the other part I don't know, honestly. Okay. Is there any more question? Display screen. Um, if you mean the display, so the question is it possible to save the content which was shown on the display screen? Now, if you by display screen mean the display dialog box, then no, it cannot be. But if you mean something else and you are using the word display screen for something that it is not really the name of, then I don't know what you are talking about. So if you could paraphrase your question, that will be slightly better. Um, Display dialog box. No, not the dialog. What you have on the dialog box directly, that cannot be recorded. You can record what is there in the results window. You can record what is in the history window. And then we will definitely come on the third day about to that question of comments later on. But what you have in the display dialog box, directly that cannot be saved anywhere. Okay. There was one question in the middle. Yeah, I was coming to that. What was reproducibility? Reproducibility is, let's say, consider today's session. Exactly what the things that we did. We calculated 4 minus 5, we calculated log of 8. Twice we calculated 5 plus log of 6 multiplied by 3 to the power 2. Then we changed the working directory, and then we loaded this data set. These are the steps that we took today. Now, if someone asks you that, okay, what did you do in the session? Reproduce everything that you did in Stata. And they ask you 5 months from now, will you be able to repeat everything? My guess is not. And the same thing applies to your actual research work. Uh, people people will actually require you to reproduce your work. Not only that, you might have to reproduce the work for uh, correcting something. Um, so when you try to do that 5 months, forget about 5 months. When you try to do that 3 days down the line, you will see that you have forgotten 50% of what you did. So you need to record each and every step, some way of recording each and every step that you took. So that is where reproducibility is, that you record each and every step. And that is the cornerstone of scientific quantitative research. So that is all about that is all that is there about reproducibility. So we will see how to record all these things that we are doing. All right. Anything else that I did not answer? No, I think I have done everything. All right, those of you who are still here, good night. Thank you for sticking past the stipulated time. And again, if you have any question, don't feel shy to email me. Um, Otherwise, hope to see you in the next session. So stay safe and good night. Is there something else?
Thank you so much, Professor. And we all are looking forward for another three series of this, another three sessions of this series which are going to come up. And I'm myself seriously looking for it. Quite curious to know more and learn more data and getting on hands on to it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so just one last point, you will see that in the handouts that I have given you, at the end of the first set, there are some review questions. And on the last page, there are solutions to those review questions are there. So in case you feel like you want to do them, feel free to go through them, because I think that will probably clear some doubts that or questions that you have, or if something is not clear, you can ask in the next session, or send me send me an email if something is not clear. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all, and thank you to the entire library staff who helped me to organize this. It has been really, really great of them to help in this way. So thank you and good night.
Good night, Professor. Thank you so much.